Halloween weekend. It was scary for some teams. And Hugh Freeze, is he still employed? Locked on SEC Squad Reaction Show starts now.
You're talking ball with the SEC Squad. From Alabama to Tennessee, from Georgia to Oklahoma, from Auburn to Texas, it's the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network bringing you scoops, breakdowns, and the most comprehensive preview of the upcoming SEC weekend. It's the SEC Squad, and we have a seat for you. Hurt feelings and thin skins are prohibited. Squad up, you're part of the SEC Squad.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into our SEC Squad Reaction Show, reacting to SEC Week 10. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege, get $20 off your first purchase. Smaller group this week. Chris Gordy locked on SEC, Stephen Willis locked on Ole Miss, John Miller locked on Mizzou. We'll see if some of our other brethren jump in. We'll have some messages from some of our guys who couldn't make it, given their reaction to their games. But gents, welcome in SEC Week 10. We're going to get to some of the games, but I got to start here because I am honestly shocked. Here we are, the morning of November 2nd, and Hugh Freeze is still employed as the head coach at Auburn. Auburn loses at 10-3 at home last night. At home at night, 10-3, 241 yards of total offense, 2 turnovers. Are you guys with me as shocked as we are that Hugh Freeze is still employed?
Don't we deserve to see Hugh Freeze face Diego Pavia again? Hasn't Freeze earned that right? If you take that away and the boosters take that away by removing Freeze just because he lost to Kentucky, like that's not the most egregious thing he's ever done, you know, don't take away the Diego Pavia rematch for the third or fourth time again. I mean, I've made Father's Day jokes about Hugh Freeze for 9 months. Don't the week before that game pull the rug out from under me.
Sir Fishing Guy's asking, does Freeze get fired today? Well, according to our Zach Blackerby over at Locked On Auburn, he's a little wishy-washy on it. So I'm not so sure, guys. I don't know if Auburn even wants to jump into this hiring cycle necessarily, but honestly, after yesterday, how can you not? I mean, 3 points against Kentucky. You don't get into the end zone against that defense, against that ball club. I got to say, what I said about Hugh Freeze maybe a month ago in this space still applies. How do you have no offense going at this point? I mean, and almost literally no offense yesterday. It was brutal to watch. Thank goodness it was on the side TV, and I was watching Game 7 mostly instead.
Well,
Yeah.
Listen, real quick. I don't think Auburn needs to fire Hugh Freeze during the season. Hugh needs to wear this. You don't need a situation where DJ Durkin beats Alabama at the end of the year and all of this pressure, this hiring cycle kind of comes in to where you kind of marry the babysitter. I think Hugh Freeze needs to wear this. And it sucks for Auburn fans because all Auburn fans want to be what Auburn was 10 years ago. That's all they want. But if you fire Hugh Freeze now, it's not going to help you at all because any athletic and search committee and all of that can be working behind the scenes anyway. Let Hugh Freeze wear this. This season's a wash anyway.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see something of substance come out. Keep in mind, you know, in terms of timeline goes, I want to say the Billy Napier thing happened pretty quickly, right? But as far as LSU, a week ago at this time, rumblings were there were going to be changes made at LSU. And at the time, we kind of just thought, oh, they're going to fire Joe Sloan, the offensive coordinator, or something like that, like major changes made internally. But it wasn't until a little bit later in the day that it came out that, you know, Brian Kelly's going to be fired. So as we sit right now, yes, while nothing has transpired yet, doesn't mean that in an hour this thing can't change. It is funny. Somebody brought up there's a website where you can look at what the country club there at Auburn, and there was a tea time set for this afternoon for Jill Freeze. But you know, is that Hugh using an alias? Is that really his wife going to golf with people? I don't know. But regardless, this is the silly season we get into, guys, and I just don't know. I mean, at this point, holding on to him is just is more embarrassing than jumping into the pool and saying, hey, we fired him and it wasn't a success. It's just, I don't know how you roll him back out there another week. This is crazy.
Yeah.
That's the thing. There really is no huge advantage, I don't think, in the hiring cycle, as Steven said. But to your point, Gordy, it does almost feel like, hey, do you want to play these games out and actually have a little bit of juice, try to win? I don't know. I agree with Steven to some extent. Like, oh my God, what if they actually put up a fight against Alabama and that muddies the waters a little bit? I don't know. That's kind of a low. That seems like a low. Kind of a low reasoning there, like not the greatest reasoning I've ever heard to make a decision there. But I do see your point. At the same time, if you're Auburn, you just got to do what's best for you going forward here. I mean, what are you as Auburn? Are you just going to continue to fire a coach every 3 or 4 years? I mean, there's got to be some modicum of patience even in this NIL environment. I will say, though, Freeze does deserve to go. I know I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here because, again, his calling card, offense, quarterbacks, it just hadn't been there.
Yeah, and make no mistakes, Hugh Freeze needs to be fired. Absolutely. It just is the matter of how you do it. That's what I'm talking about. You want to make sure you have a plan. Is John Cohen the person to hire the next football coach? I mean, all of this stuff, you need to have internal conversations about what's going on in Auburn and what you want to be and how you get out of this mess. It can't just be, hey, an emotional move of hiring Hugh Freeze and leaving John Cohen when John Cohen might be the problem right now. So that's interesting. That's all I'm saying on this.
Yeah, the crazy part is they gave up 7 sacks last night to Kentucky. 7 sacks, and as Pete Nakos reports, the buyout would be $15.4 million. So it's a lot of money, but it's not ridiculous. You know, what was Napier? He was somewhere in that territory between 15 and 20. Of course, Brian Kelly and James Franklin were the massive ones, but you know, I don't know. You know, at this point, it's not working. And for those who didn't see the video last night, leaving the field, nobody, like a whole swaths of the stadium did not leave. They stayed and chanted, "Fire Hugh, fire Hugh." So again, just a message to, you know, and it's not people being unreasonable. It's just, this is going nowhere. And, you know, again, I raised my hand last week. I thought Brian Kelly was going to be a hit higher at LSU. It wasn't. I think we all, you know, a lot of us thought Hugh Freeze was going to be a hit higher at Auburn, like, and he's recruited well. It's just his track record of what he did with quarterbacks prior to this stop at Auburn was great. How did it go so wrong? How did he miss on quarterbacks? And last night, Ashton Daniels gets a start. Nothing. There was nothing there. They go back to Jackson Arnold. Nothing. Like,
yeah,
we crapped on Peyton Thorne, but this is whoever suits up a quarterback for Auburn. Can't do jack.
Yeah, the crazy thing is they've got a really good defense, maybe one of the best defenses in the country, and they're just absolutely wasting it each and every week. It's got to be frustrating to be on that side of the ball. And normally you brought up, hey, the mob is against Freeze, right? I'm usually not one to go for the mob, but in this case they might have a point because it's really about the future. What's the future? What's next season? The really near future here for Auburn and Hugh Freeze. How's it looking? Their high school recruiting hasn't been great in this cycle. You're just basically praying that he hits big in the quarterback portal cycle, I guess. Well, you can hope that for your next coach and any coach. So I just don't know what the pro keeping Hugh take is at this point, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the crazy thing is, Hugh Freeze and Gus Malzahn, they have the same problem. They had an offense that was built up back in the mid-20 teens to be successful. But Nick Saban and everybody worked to get rules changed that kind of nerfed that offense. And now neither one of them are what they once were. And that's not going to change at all. And Hugh Freeze still living off wins over 2014 Alabama and 2015 Alabama. Those days aren't happening again. They're just not.
Yep.
The other one is Kentucky, like you said, beats them 10-3 at home. Auburn drops to 4-5 with a trip to Vanderbilt up next. In their 5 SEC losses, Auburn has scored 6 total touchdowns. 6. I mean, you're supposed to be, offense is supposed to be your specialty. I saw last night the 3-3 tie at halftime was the tied the fewest combined points entering halftime in an SEC game this season. Like, I don't know how many more red alerts you need for Auburn to pull the trigger here. Like, what are you waiting for? Like, you're not getting, like, you know, if you're going to start trying to raise money and donations or whatever, like, you're not getting a penny while Hugh Freeze is still the head coach. So I just, again, if they don't pull the trigger today, I'm baffled.
Does his buyout amount go down if like December 2nd hits or something like that? Is it possible?
I think it's the same now, or if they wait. I mean, either way, it's and even if it does go down, it's not going to go down significantly. It's not going to be like a huge drop.
Okay.
So I don't know. Again, you guys are in agreement with me though. Like this should have already happened.
It's tough to say. Again, it's tough for me to come up with a reason not to. That's the thing. I really can't.
Yeah. Yep. Somebody in the chat said it does go down December 1st.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
But again, it's always like what, $1 million or $2 million. Like it's never something. It's not like it goes down 10 million if they wait. Like it
only goes down 400K. It also says. So.
Yeah, so that's insignificant. I mean, who cares? Yeah. You're going to lose more. You're going to make the 400K back if you fire him. Home concessions. More people will go to the games if you fire him because they'll be excited to see what DJ Durkin or whoever takes over as the interim would be. But man, it is ugly. It is ugly. And if Auburn does open, that opening does come up, man, it is just you start to mount the number of jobs that are open. And what's so interesting, guys, is I've seen a few coaches say this. The coaches always love to throw out the line. I just wanted to throw this in here. I haven't been contacted by anyone. Are we smart enough in 2025 to understand that nobody calls the coaches and says, hey, you're interested? The agents are contacted, so the coaches always have plausible deniability to go, no, I haven't been contacted by anyone. Nobody's called me. Yeah, no crap, dummy. Like they're calling your agents. So we're getting into that silly season where we got a number of SEC jobs open, and we're starting to see guys come off the market. Kurt Cignetti is already locked in long term. Matt Rule, for some stupid reason, Nebraska locked it on him.
Matt Rule is not locked in. His buyout went $5 million up. That's all that happened.
They added 2 years to his deal to basically signify he's not going anywhere. Yeah. And then he loses to USC when Raiola gets hurt. And then the other one we saw was Rhett Lashley. Now, Rhett Lashley was very much on the radar for Arkansas, but that takes it off. So, I mean, guys, do you think we're going to see like a paradigm shift here in college athletics? I'm hearing some LSU talking about like maybe the Tulane coach, maybe this guy. They're starting to look at, I think we're going to get away from the big splash hires here. I think they're starting to look at, with money involved, all you need is money to go buy players and top assistants. The head coach kind of in some spots, I mean, tell me what you guys think. I almost wonder if the head coach is a little bit insignificant nowadays, because you would look on the paper and say, Kurt Cignetti, that guy's not attracting any young kids. But like, I almost wonder if you just get like a figurehead and spend all the money elsewhere.
I think figurehead is the right word. That's what I would go with. That is kind of what you need in this environment, at least if, you're just trying to put together the best roster you possibly can. I think there's a lot of truth to that, and it's interesting you're bringing up the big splash hires. Well, appropriately enough, we got the Locked On Mizzou guy here and the Locked On Ole Miss guy here. Those are probably Eli and Lane. Those are the two coaches you're going to be hearing a lot about here over the next few weeks, whether they go or not. I'm guessing that I'll just say Mizzou. I think Drinkwitz stays. That's my assumption. That's my guess at this point. We'll see what happens, but I think that's to Gordy's point. I don't know that we're going to be seeing maybe as much big name movement as you would have thought. That's good news for James Franklin.
Yeah, I don't think honestly Lane's going anywhere either, because I mean, heck, he has a contract offer that he's not going to sign to the end of the year. Everybody wants Lane to sign an extension. He's done this for 6 years. He waits until the last game. Then he does whatever he's going to do. That's just what he does. Lane kind of works at his own pace and under his own self-guidance, essentially. But I think the Mike Elko thing has everybody going. It's a copycat world. Everybody is going to try and find their Mike Elko. Texas A&M went out got the Duke coach. And now Texas A&M is a threat to reach a level that they haven't reached in, 80 years, something like that. And I think LSU is going to go that way. I think Florida is going to go that way. It's not going to be the James Franklins and all these big names. It's going to be the Chris Klymans, those type things. LSU might think they could take somebody like PJ Fleck and put him with the resources, and all of a sudden LSU becomes a thing. It's going to be really interesting to see exactly what goes on.
And what's fascinating too, guys, is for all the negative publicity the Louisiana governor got this week, and rightfully so, I thought he actually made some pretty good points from the standpoint of we need to get away from these stupid 10-year contracts. Like somebody brought this up with Elko. Elko was hired at $7 million a year. That's not, that like for what A&M is, they should be paying the 10 million, 11 million a year for a coach. And Elko may get a raise this year, but it was very incentive laden. It was like, if you hit this, if you make the SEC championship, you'll get this. Like, and I think that's where we need to kind of get back. We've let the agents control the ADs for too long that, like, if we can get back to some incentive-laden contracts where you hire a guy 6, 7, 8 million on a 5-year deal instead of a 10-year deal, we're not going to see these stupid massive buyouts that, again, teams and schools and boosters are dumb enough to pay it. But I just wonder if we can get back to, like, earn it. Go earn it. Like, and every time a coach is on a deal and he has a 10-win season, it's like, well, he's due for a raise. Why? He's earning his current pay. Why does he need a raise? I just think that was a good point from a standpoint. We need to get back to, like, go earn your job. You don't just get paid $100 million for just being a name.
Yeah, and you have a situation to where the boosters are being tasked on NIL, they're being tasked on everything, and these buyouts, that is money that's not going into the NIL budget. So your team is not going to be as good because it's not unlimited money that a person is willing to donate. So these buyouts almost have to get smaller from every single school so the NIL budget can stay healthy. It's not a situation to where it's going to be one or the other.
We're still under a real, I think, market adjustment here over the last few years, which is, of course, before the 2020s, the coaches made all the money and the players made essentially nothing. They got their scholarship, money. But now, for example, you've got like Eli Drinkwitz makes $10 million a year. The Missouri quarterback this past season in the open market, Bo Prabula, reportedly got $1.5 million. Is the coach 10 times, 7 times more important than the quarterback? I think there's still an adjustment period that's happening here. And I think, some of that's going to be the head coach is in the future going to be taking a little bit less money, relatively speaking, compared to everybody else. Maybe their take-home pay is still going to be as high as ever and maybe higher in the future. But like I said, I think some of the pie is going to get divided up elsewhere.
I just saw some commenter said, start Deuce Knight. And that's what I don't get is why you would go with Ashton Daniels, who nobody was excited about coming over from Stanford. Like, he didn't have great numbers. But to start him was just so super disappointing. Like, start Deuce Knight. And you want to do the whole he ain't ready? Who cares? He's a freak athlete who's talented. He might do something spectacular. Like, put him out there and just see. That would at least sell the fan base on something to get excited about for the future. But when you're like spinning your wheels and just putting out crap quarterback after crap quarterback, it's just, man, just very, very disappointing. All right, I think we've ranted enough on Auburn. When we return, guys, we're going to get into some of the games we saw, some of the other games we saw yesterday, some big teams going down. We'll talk about that next. Hey, but first, I want to remind you guys that we are presented by Game Time, and college football is back. Could not be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, and of course, there's nothing like being there and getting tickets that can feel more like a battle than the game itself. That's why you got to use the Game Time app, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices, no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. Again, take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. You download the Game Time app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCollege. If you've never used them before, you can get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDON. Get $20 off your first purchase at Game Time. It is Game Time app, swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, gents, we get into some of the action that happened yesterday, and let's start with Georgia, Florida, because man, what a great effort from Billy Gonzalez. What's Gonzalez's first name?
Billy Gonzalez.
Anyway,
Billy Gonzalez.
I lose track of all the friggin'
Billy and
coaches.
Billy, a little confusing.
But Billy Gonzalez takes over as the interim, and Florida fought like heck, man. That they had a lead for a good bit in the game, and then Georgia kind of rallies late and pulls away there for the 24-20 win. But I thought you never know with these rivalry games. Sometimes, the team without a coach is going to get up, and that's what we saw from Florida. What'd you guys make of it?
Well, you never want to be the team that goes against an interim coach in his first game. You're okay with playing an interim coach in his third game, but you never want to get that first game because you don't know exactly what's going to happen, except the effort is going to be very good. Jaden Baugh is kind of a machine. They used him different in that ball game. And DJ Lagway, while not great, he did look better in this game. And defensively, they're really good. Now, the problem is you were playing against Georgia, and second half Georgia has been one of the best team in the country all year. First half Georgia has been a mid-tier SEC team, but second half Georgia has been pretty good, and that's what happened. Florida got second half Georgia. The reality is in that game, I think in college football, there is nothing more that affects the momentum of a game than a fourth down stop. I know that you want it to go up by 10 points in that game, but a field goal makes it a 6-point game, and there's no way that you need more than a field goal to win the game. And that would be beneficial. Billy Gonzalez kind of fell for the trap against the Georgia Bulldogs because that's what a fourth down is against this Georgia and Kirby Smart defense. It's a trap, and Georgia got that. The momentum swung, and that was the ball game.
Yeah, that 4th and 2 is often just a sticky wicket, isn't it? The 4th and 1, the 4th and inches, I would have been going, yeah, Gators, go for it in the game. 4th and 2, it's tempting. 4th and 3, they would probably just kick the field goal. I'm with you.
Just a quick thought on this one. Georgia they still have not put together a full 4 quarters of football this year, guys. And yet they're 7-1, 5-1 in the SEC. It's almost like Kirby Smart sometimes can put this thing on autopilot and they find a way to score late. They find a way to pull away, get a big stop, and they win games. But this doesn't feel like one of the most dangerous Georgia teams. But think of what we were saying about Ohio State a year ago at this time. Yeah, good team. We'll see what happens. Whoever gets in the playoff and starts playing their best football, Ohio State did last year. They won a national championship. Georgia falls in that category to me. They haven't looked perfect. People are going to doubt them and question them and all that. But if they get to the playoff and Gunnar Stockton's playing great and the defense playing great, it's a team that can win a national championship. So, and they've done it twice in the past 5 years. So there's a chance for them to add another one there. On the flip side, Steven, I just asked this because I heard some internet rumors, some people floating it out there. Any thought to DJ Lagway being Ole Miss's quarterback next year?
I would say that I don't think so, or anything concrete on that. I think that if Lane got him, he would be a very, very good quarterback because everybody that plays quarterback for Lane Kiffin is going to be good, including a Division II transfer into the system. It would be interesting to see what happens because if Trinidad gets his waiver, and he's trying to get a waiver for a 6-year of eligibility, then it's going to be Trinidad. If he doesn't, then it becomes the question, Austin Simmons, do you bring transfer portal quarterbacks in, all of that stuff. I think it's interesting. I think DJ Lagway could be a very good quarterback if they could get his mechanics situated. It's the same problem that Arch Manning has at Texas. If they can figure out the mechanics and help his accuracy a little bit, he will be a very good quarterback. But right now, he's just kind of an unfolded lawn chair out there.
Yeah, again, it's internet fodder. We'll see what happens in the offseason with transfer portal and all that. But and again, Trinidad's been playing great. Austin Simmons is still super talented. He could still be the guy next year for Ole Miss. Just thought I'd throw that out there. Let's get to this one real quick, guys. Ole Miss beat South Carolina 30-14, probably closer than we thought for a little while. But the big news just coming out, Ross Tellinger just confirming this. Mike Shula has been fired at South Carolina. Not a big surprise there, but offense certainly has been a big problem for South Carolina. Look, South Carolina's defense has stepped it up the last few weeks. They gave Bama all they could handle last week. They gave Ole Miss all they could handle this week before Ole Miss kind of pulled away there in the fourth quarter. But so Mike Shula fired. But what'd you make of the game yesterday, Stephen?
First game this season where Suntarine Perkins looked like Suntarine Perkins. He was all over the field in that game. And Kejuan Lacey, he is going to be a star and is potentially the best running back in the entire Southeastern Conference right now. He's going to end up rushing for 1,300 yards this season. It's amazing. And it's kind of funny to think about that the offense for Ole Miss, they kind of were stuck in neutral for large portions of the game. They still scored 30 points on a pretty good defense. And Ole Miss's defense, that was the story in this game. Everybody wants to talk about Mike Shula getting fired and all of that, and South Carolina's offense being really bad, which they were atrocious. My Norris Sellers takes that I had in the offseason about him not being what everybody was saying is a reality. He's a good player, but I mean, South Carolina has broken him at this point. He was missing wide open receivers in this game, but Ole Miss is going to be good. They got that first win in this playoff March time. It was kind of like I compared it to a 2-minute drive. You want that first down. This was that first down. They have the Citadel, they have Florida, they have Mississippi State. Let's see what happens.
I was pretty impressed really with Ole Miss. I mean, overall, just taking care of business there, winning comfortably at the end. But yeah, that South Carolina offense, it just hasn't gotten going at all. Obviously, Mike Shula probably had this coming. I'll say this, though. If we're going to have as many jobs open, prominent jobs, if I'm South Carolina, I'm sure hoping Shane Beamer stays around. I know it hasn't gone perfectly this year, but let's not go crazy. Let's not turn into Florida and Auburn and just be trying to fire our coach every single 3 or 4 years or so. I'm very conservative when it comes to that kind of thing still, especially if you're not LSU. If you're more like South Carolina, be a little bit more conservative.
Again, Ole Miss is 8-1 here, and any more pitfalls on the schedule, Stephen? I know they still got the Egg Bowl and it's at Mississippi State, but I mean, I guess Florida in a couple weeks maybe could give them a game. But even if you lose one of those two, I mean, Ole Miss is going to a playoff game. So I hate to say they're a lock, but I mean they're all but a lock.
Yeah, Ole Miss is going to be a 10-point favorite in every single game. But listen, I'm not joking about this. There is nothing more dangerous in the Egg Bowl than a 5-win team. They're seriously, I've seen the weirdness happen in that ball game. Ole Miss could walk into that game at 10-1 and all of a sudden face a Mississippi State team that looks like the 85 Bears on that day. I've seen some weird stuff in that game. And Jeff Levy getting his first win against Arkansas. They have Georgia. I realize they have Missouri, all of that coming up. But that game now becomes the figurehead because Mississippi State only needs one more game to win. And if they do that, they can be bowl eligible. If bowl gets on the line, that is a potential pitfall game for Ole Miss.
I'll say too on the Mike Shula thing. I mean, didn't we all think like when they made that announcement, this isn't going to work? Like, I don't know. That was my thought. I hate the old retreads and look at the success people are having around the country. I mean, for the most part, when we look at teams that are great offenses, a lot outside of maybe Mike Bobo in Georgia, which, debatable if you want to call that great, but like it's always the young up and comers, right? Or the young coaches that call their own plays, like the Alex Golish at USF and stuff like that. So I don't know. When you announced Mike Shula, it was like, man, I'd much rather go with some young, 30-year-old upstart, guy that's going to get the most out of Lenore Sellers. And honestly, the offensive line has been a big problem, but Sellers has not taken that next step this year like we kind of thought they would. And Shane Beamer at 3-6 now. I mean, they have to win out to get to a bowl game. And so very disappointing, especially when people were talking about them as a dark horse for the playoff this year. Let's squeeze one more game in here real quick, guys. Vanderbilt, Texas was very entertaining at the early game yesterday, and entertaining from a standpoint that Texas came out and looked like they were supposed to this year. I mean, dominant defense. Simmons is flying around. Arch connects with Ryan Wingo on the first offensive play of the game. He takes it 75 yards to the house. And I thought Arch played very well. What he finished with over 300 yards passing. But, man, did they take their foot off the gas and let Vandy back into this one. Vandy scores 21 fourth-quarter points and was a bobbled onside kick away. If they come down with that, they're going to have about 30 seconds to play with and either a game-tying field goal or game-winning touchdown. So Texas a little lucky to get out with the win. Feels like we've been saying that the last couple weeks with Texas. Lucky to get out of Starkville with a win, lucky to get out of Lexington with a win. But albeit, Texas is sitting at 7-2, and if they keep winning, they're going to make the playoff.
Yeah, and they got a big game coming up again at Georgia. And Steve Sarkisian had the benefit of seeing what Lane Kiffin did to that Georgia defense. They come from the same tree. They're both Norm Chow coaches that developed at USC. And Arch Manning, for better or worse, they've kind of unlocked Arch Manning over the last two games. Now, if Texas, who has the defense to really thwart Georgia, Georgia's going to have to work. It's going to be a tight game. If Arch can make some plays to Ryan Wingo and all that, it could be a situation to where Texas can pull off that upset. And if Texas got into the playoff, if they just get there after beating Georgia in Georgia and against Texas A&M and get to the playoff, they will be an increasingly dangerous team because they've kind of figured it out over the course of the season. But if Georgia wins this game, I think Georgia wins this game by multiple scores if Georgia wins. If Texas wins, it's a nail biter because this would be the third loss for Texas. So we'll see. I am appreciative of what Arch Manning did against Vanderbilt in this game. Vandy had their furious comeback at the end of the game, and it could have gotten interesting if the ball didn't go out of bounds, but Texas has a chance to be pretty dangerous, but it all depends on what happens in Athens.
Yeah, Athens, and of course they've got Texas A&M left too. I mean, I agree with you. I think the Horns are playing better football. I just don't quite see them as a playoff team just yet. No. Certainly if they win out, yeah, they're going to be there. They've got that opportunity, but I just don't see that happening personally.
I like it. Look, there's a lot of people dogging Arch. Did Arch have a lot of yak yesterday? Yes. At the end of the day, he still threw the passes that he needed to, and Texas looked great. So, it's I don't, because there was Texas fan. I got into one on Twitter. I said, look, y'all were lucky to hang on there. He's like, look, we dominated that game. It's like, okay, but you can't leave the door open. When you got your foot on your opponent's throat, do it. Win. Put them away. Don't leave the door open. And that's what Texas did. Again, but you got to give them credit. Like, they're in a position here where they can go win at Georgia, who doesn't look like dominant Georgia, and a chance that Texas can upset A&M in the final week of the regular season and get into the playoff at 10-2 still. So, again, still something to play for there at Texas. All right, when we return, guys, we'll get to what was perhaps the best game of the week in the SEC. That was last night with Rocky Top going down at home. We'll discuss more of that in just a sec. Hey, but first, I want to remind you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. Of course, the NBA is back. No better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game, you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. You can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout as well. And I was looking at some of the lines in college yesterday, guys. Florida got the 7.5 cover against Georgia. Texas covered the 2.5 against Vandy, barely. Ole Miss, minus 12.5 hit versus South Carolina. But how about if you'd done a 3-game parlay, if you'd taken Kentucky straight up over Auburn, Mississippi State straight up over Arkansas, and OU straight up over Tennessee, man, you would have been living pretty today. And of course, you could do a 3-game parlay over there at FanDuel if that is what tickles your fancy right now. FanDuel giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com, sign up, play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, fellas, what perhaps turned out to be the game of the week last night, or at least it was pinned a de facto playoff elimination game. It was Oklahoma at Tennessee, and look, I was just a big buyer on Tennessee's offense and how ridiculous it's been. Top 5 offense in the country. Oklahoma, they've been a top 5 defense all year, but I just thought after what they did against Ole Miss at home last week, it was like, well, surely Tennessee's not going to have a problem moving the ball. They moved the ball, but they just couldn't find the end zone a ton with some Joey Aguilar turnovers, missed chip shot field goal, and Oklahoma gets the 33-27 win on Rocky Top. But how shocked were you guys that Josh Heupel at Tennessee take their 3rd loss, 6-3 now? Seems like playoffs are a done deal for them.
I was just kind of shocked by some of the passes I saw Joey Aguilar throw in that game. That was just a turnover fest, really. I mean, just in terms of just huge turnovers in that game, really both ways. And like you say, a missed kick there by the Tennessee kicker and a couple huge kicks by the Sooner kicker from 50 yards plus, and there was really your difference. But the thing with Joey Aguilar in Tennessee is their offense is always just looks like an absolute machine, and it just eats up like a lawnmower or something when they're have lower competition. But when it's a better competition, a fairer fight, you see the warts start to pop up. I think what I'm trying to say is Heupel can basically make any quarterback look good in a lot of situations, but in a game against a good Oklahoma defense, I think you saw some warts start to emerge there.
Yeah, and this had to be a game that Oklahoma won with their defense because John Mateer has struggled over the last couple of weeks coming in, and he was better against Tennessee, but that was still mostly with his legs. It took Joey Aguilar putting the ball at risk, committing turnovers. That was that, I guess, that turnover that they led to a touchdown where the guy pulled his hamstring going in. That completely turned the game around. And once Oklahoma kind of gets their teeth into you, it's over. Because that defense is good enough to make you hurt. I think Oklahoma, they have a really tough schedule with at Alabama coming up, and that would be potentially their third loss of the season. But Tennessee being eliminated from the playoff this early with a 10-2 Vanderbilt coming in and ailing, in which they're going to likely be favored to handle that Vanderbilt team. I don't know as many 10-2 teams are going to be a playoff land at the end of the year as it was thought, I don't know, Friday.
Yeah, I think that's true. I've started to look at that math, and all offseason I've been saying, hey, Mizzou, that 10-2, that'll get them in 90% of the time. I'm not so sure now. Just looking at all these different scenarios, I'm with you, Steven, and it seems like there's going to be a lot fewer spots for the 10-win teams than I would have thought coming into the year.
By the way, we continue to get what is happening at Auburn. What is Auburn waiting on? I keep pulling up those tweets or messages because I think that's what we're all saying right now. There has been a report that Auburn will have a meeting this afternoon, but again, we'll wait to see if one of the, if it does, to me, if it doesn't come from, the big ones, the Ross Dellingers, the Pete Nakos, those guys, we'll wait for something official from one of those guys. But real quick,
Cole Kublik posted on Twitter 30 minutes ago. That's all, folks.
Okay. Well,
just the Looney Tunes thing.
Again, not a shocker. We're just waiting for the official word here. But anyway, but just a quick thought. Yeah, Oklahoma's still alive, very much still alive. And here's the crazy part. Mateer played well. Like I was very impressed with the Oklahoma offense. To go into Rocky Top and score 33, I get it. Tennessee doesn't have the best defense, but still, Oklahoma hadn't been doing that the last couple weeks offensively. And so they finally found their groove. And yeah, you mentioned, Steve, going into Alabama is going to be tough, but that defense is, when they need to make a big play, our Mason Thomas was outstanding. We'll see what his status is for next week because he got banged up. But if Oklahoma can find a way, they come back home for Mizzou and LSU, a chance for 2 marquee wins. Sorry, John, but if they beat Mizzou, that's a good win. And then LSU super talented. I know they fired Brian Kelly. We'll see what they look like by the last week. But I think, Oklahoma, I don't think 9-3 gets them in, but what say you guys? So you think there's a chance they could win out?
I think there's a chance. The odds are not in their favor because Alabama has that game circled and has for 365 days because of what happened in Norman a year ago. But if Oklahoma goes to 9-3 teams in the SEC, it's not going to make the playoffs the way everything is falling out.
Yep.
That's just not going to happen. They have a good team. They have a much better team. And maybe they were right. That game in Norman between Oklahoma and Ole Miss was a playoff elimination game. And Oklahoma lost that game. Now, the one thing that Oklahoma fans should be excited about, Oklahoma leaned on the run game. X-Man had a bunch of yards in that game and kind of changed what was going on and what it looked like. Maybe Ben Arbuckle kind of like, okay, we're going to lean into this a little bit and help out John Mateer, and Oklahoma looked like a much better product with him doing that.
By the way, they showed before the game that kind of funny moment pregame where I think it was an Oklahoma fan who kind of shook John Mateer's hand maybe a little bit too hard or something. He winced for a second. Well, he looked fine in the game, so that obviously a lot better than he looked at the down in the shootout down in Dallas. That's for sure. So that's good news for Oklahoma. And speaking of what do teams look like in the future, you brought up Missouri, Gordy. Well, what is Missouri going to look like? I think is going to be an interesting thought, not just for the Tigers, but of course they can be a spoiler for a lot of different teams down the stretch, including Texas A&M. A&M this week. I think that Missouri defense is legit. They've obviously got a really good running back. What do they look like at quarterback? That's the question. You saw the true freshman Matt Zollers come in against Vanderbilt a couple weeks ago after Bo Prabula was injured. Well, he looked pretty good. But again, true freshman, what's that Missouri offense going to look like? I think that Missouri's kind of a fascinating wild card here down the stretch in the SEC. I'm not totally sure what to expect from the Tigers.
Real quick, let's hear from some of our cohorts after that game last night. Let's hear from Eric Kane, and then we'll hear from Jay Smith. Here was Eric.
Brutal football game for Tennessee as the college football playoff hopes and dreams and aspirations are over. Tennessee falls 33-27 to Oklahoma in a game where, man, for as good as Joey Aguilar has been so far this season and for everything that he's brought to Tennessee, I mean, again, the SEC's best offense, it was bad in the first half. Two interceptions that led to field goals. He was strip sacked and returned for a 71-yard touchdown. I'm not putting that on him. I'm putting that on the right tackle. But nonetheless, 3 turnovers from Joey Aguilar directly led to 13 points of the 16 points in the first half for the Oklahoma Sooners. It changed the way the game was played. And overall in this football game, you got a great effort from the defense. Tennessee's defense played well. Tennessee's defense made stops. Tennessee's defense tackled. I say all that, that's elementary, but that hasn't been the case all year long. And you wasted that opportunity in a game that had all the makings to be one of those awesome games. Neyland Stadium, the crowd was awesome, the light shows, dark mode, all that and more. But first half turnovers changed the way the game was called, changed the way the game was operated, and that's the story in this one. Critical fourth and one that was missed out on later in the football game. Some other critical plays, but those first half turnovers, the biggest difference. And that's unfortunate because this is a fun offense, and you get an effort like that on defense, but it's for naught, and Tennessee's college football playoff chances are done at 3 losses right now.
Yep, I'm here. Didn't get to make it, though, because I'm in Knoxville, about to fly home. Oklahoma takes down the Volunteers on the road for their 3rd ranked win this season. I think that's like second most in college football, 33-27, which is a big deal for the Sooners because why? That was the ugliest and most disgusting win I think we've had. But hey, we have a Heisman Trophy candidate though. Tate Sandell, titanium leg Tate. Dude hit like 350-yarders in a hostile environment. Like you got to give that man props. That's just ridiculous. So we're able to pull off something that I didn't think we was going to be able to do. Lies. I actually picked us to win this game. But I didn't think that we would be able to gut it out. This was a game win for the culture. This was a win for morale. And they better take this and grow. John Mateer looks like he's gotten a little bit more confident in his throw and his run and his decision-making. He better keep making these dang decisions. Now we get a bye week, so R. Mason Thomas can rest after he returned a fumble like Greg Jennings. So the touchdown put the team on his back. And, yeah, we'll see y'all in Tuscaloosa in like 2 weeks. Boomer Sooner.
So there was the reaction there. And look, Tennessee, I got to give them credit. I mean, look, when they moved on from Nico Iamaleava, we thought this was going to be a very difficult year. Joey Aguilar has surpassed everybody's expectations for him and then some, but still at 6-3, playoff hopes kind of over after they made the playoffs last year and got the tough draw of having to go play at Ohio State and got obliterated. But Oklahoma's still alive. Again, tough schedule remaining. We'll see what happens there. One more game to react to, guys. God, this was a game of like, who doesn't want to win this game? Mississippi State versus Arkansas. It looked like for a chance there, Arkansas was gonna pull away with this one, and Mississippi State came fighting back. And for two teams that neither had an SEC win, Mississippi State pulls it out in the end, 38-35. Happy for Jeff Lebby because man, that they have not had an SEC win in quite some time, 2 years, and they were able to pull it out. But the Bobby Petrino interim error is just going to be remembered for, God, they came close in every one-score losses in every game, it feels like, but 2-7 overall.
Yeah, it would be kind of funny if they beat Texas after all of that. It would almost be fitting. They beat Texas, lose to Missouri, and that's kind of the end of the Bobby P train for Arkansas. I do think that John Neighbors, we need to do like a wellness check on him because another one-score game, another game that got away from the Arkansas Razorbacks. There's a culture shift that needs to happen on the hill up in Fayetteville. I think it will be interesting to see exactly what happens for that. Now, Arkansas, they have some games that they can mess with essentially in this last month, but this Mississippi State game was their best opportunity for a win.
Yeah, it was just classic Arkansas. It really was. That team is just so up and down, and it, like you say, it was just almost, the immovable, whatever the opposite of that old cliche is. But yeah, honestly, I think this game kind of went the way it was supposed to. I think if you're Mississippi State, you do want to win. If you're Arkansas, I don't even know that you want to win. I think you brought up John Neighbors. He does seem like he is maybe one of the few guys who wants it to be. Once the interim coach, why am I blanking on the man's name right now?
Bobby
Petrino. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bobby Petrino. He seems like he's the one guy who maybe would like it to continue to be the Bobby Petrino era in Fayetteville. I don't know that that's what you want. I think you got to go get a real coach and somebody with some actual discipline down in Fayetteville for once.
And that's just gonna be tough. And again, Rhett Lashley basically taken off the radar. He was a name that was thrown out there for Arkansas. There was a report a couple days ago that maybe there was some mutual interest with James Franklin in Arkansas, but then the report came out a couple days ago. Virginia Tech seemed to be the front runner for James Franklin and mutual interest there. So we'll see there. Look, if I'm James Franklin, don't rush into anything. Sit around and wait. I mean, if they pull up the money for Mike Norvell, Florida State, I mean, you can have your pick at some of the big jobs out there if you're James Franklin, and for Brian Kelly at that matter, if he just lays low and just keeps his mouth shut. We'll see what happens there. But we had some comments from some Kentucky fans. I did want to give some shine that what a win for Kentucky, because they go into Auburn and beat them 10-3. And you feel for Mark Stoops. He got very emotional at the end, basically kind of feeling like, they've been close in some of these games, and it's like everybody in Kentucky's ready to turn the page and move on from him, if not for the massive buyout he has. And so it's one of those things where he might survive the season and go into next year. It's just you get in these tough situations because of some of these contracts, but did want to give Kentucky credit because they played their hearts out against Texas 2 weeks ago, should have won that game, and they played as well as you could defensively against Auburn with the 7 sacks. So a little shine there for Kentucky. But just a quick thought, guys, because it does sound like Auburn is going to make the move this afternoon. Do you think Tennessee or Kentucky should jump in that party, or do you ride with Mark Stoops another year?
No, you've got an offense that's been developed. Cutter Boley has been serviceable as a quarterback. You have a better team than you thought you were going to have this year. And if you can get a win, pull off an upset against Vanderbilt or something like that, I think you just ride with Mark Stoops. You avoid this big cycle where all those big money schools are out there. And then next year, maybe it might be a much smaller market and somebody else from the G5 level might have emerged. Now, I know they want John Sumrall. I don't know if they're going to get John Sumrall because John Sumrall may have basically advanced beyond Kentucky, but Kentucky should be able to get somebody.
Yeah, I just wonder, there's this idea out there that, hey, do you want to be in this cycle with so many big jobs out there, and people like even Auburn and certainly Kentucky should factor that variable in. I'm not so sure that I agree with that, simply because how do we know what the next cycle is going to look like in 2026? How do we know it's not going to be just as crazy? I think we'll be sitting down talking in 12 months time, and I think we could be having just as many high profile jobs open. I'm just remembering back to this previous offseason when we were doing, hey, who's on the hot seat in the SEC? And we could hardly come up with anybody. I mean, really, for the most part, we were going, oh, Brian Kelly, he's not really on the hot seat. They're not really going to get rid of him. I'm telling you, go back to our offseason. That's what that's what the consensus was. Well, now here we are. Brian Kelly, gone. Hugh Freeze, about to be gone. Arkansas's coach, Pittman, gone. I mean, who saw James Franklin getting fired 7 weeks ago, for crying out loud? I just think this idea that, well, don't worry, the next hiring cycle, that'll be a much softer landing. Based on what? I think that's based on a lot of assumptions that I'm not willing to make.
Yeah, you got a point there. I mean, next year it could be Michigan coming open or Ohio State or USC. So, yeah, I mean, you have a point.
Yeah, I mean, some guys could want to go off to the NFL, and you never know what jobs can come open.
So to recap the big news of the morning, we do have a firing, not yet at Auburn, but officially. But South Carolina has fired offense coordinator Mike Shula. I've seen a few people tweet out, did anybody think this was going to work out? Again, that's what I think most people's attitude was. Like, that's the guy you want coming in, coaching and developing Lenore Sellers and getting the best out of him. So he is out. And then still waiting on an official word on Hugh Freeze out at Auburn, but it does seem like that is going to go that way. Through 32 games, this was as of 2 weeks ago, Hugh Freeze was 14-18 overall, 5-15 in the SEC, 14 games where the offense scored 20 points or fewer, and just not good at all. So I would assume DJ Durkin would be the first to get the interim title and see what he could do. But man, it's going to be fascinating to see where all these schools go. Do you go the big name, expensive route? I'm sure everybody wants to go big game hunting, but the more and more I think about it is, Lane Kiffin going to stay put at Ole Miss. Of course, that's going to be the one we're going to keep watching. Where does Florida go? Where does LSU go? And if this news comes out that Hugh is officially done, where does Auburn go? It's going to be fascinating, guys.
Yeah, I think Auburn's immediately going to try and hire John Sumrall. I think that's the go-to there. But you're right. And it honestly, it's funny. It doesn't help whenever Lane just doesn't sign extensions until the end of the season. He doesn't talk about it at all. He's completely locked in about what's going on, but that creates a void of information, and all voids of information are going to get filled.
Yeah, it's again, like I don't know why. I know Cole Kublik tweeted out that that's all, folks, but like, I'm almost like kind of like put your name on it. Say, according to my sources, Hugh Freeze is out. Nobody has gone that approach yet. All we're seeing is, there's a meeting and all this kind of stuff. So again, I guess it's not, what's not official isn't official, but can we get in a silly season? I mean, we already joked of Nick Saban maybe going back to LSU. Does Auburn make that phone call? And
that would be hilarious.
Yeah. Just to hear how quickly he would hang up. That's why it would be funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy, Saban Field. I think he's going to Auburn. I don't think so.
Yeah, we've seen I've had a couple comments in the chat too. People saying like, the SEC's just brutal. Guys, think of this yesterday. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 6 games yesterday were all decided by one score or less. Like, it's insane how close these games are this year. And it's got us questioning teams like Ole Miss and Georgia at times, going, well, they don't look dominant. It's hard to look dominant in this year's version of the SEC because everyone's giving you your best punch. And then, some teams play down to the competition at times. But I think that's why we have that reaction, because I think it's just so balanced that the worst team in the SEC and the best team in the SEC are not very far separated right now.
Yeah, it's just going to be interesting in the playoff, I think, because, of course, there's a lot of Big Ten fans, Big 12 fans who are going, oh, great, so the SEC, you guys are just all so great, right? Well, their point is, of course, well, what if the SEC is all just mediocre maybe, and they're just a bunch of mediocre teams beating up on each other? I don't really believe that. The good news is the playoff will give us a pretty good idea of that. I don't know if the SEC has the best team in the country. I think they have the best league in the country. That's for sure.
Yeah, it would not surprise me if they got 5 teams in the playoff this year. And whenever we record the squad show, we do that. That'll be right after the first playoff rankings come out. So I'm sure that'll be a heavy discussion point. But I'm curious to see where everybody lands, who's on the outside looking in, what's going on. I do think that Texas A&M, Georgia, Alabama, and Ole Miss, they're all going to be at least hosting, maybe having a bye.
I'm curious too, Stephen, while we got you, just a couple minutes before the top of the hour here. What if let's just say hypothetically Lane did leave and it went to either LSU or Florida, where would Ole Miss go? Would they consider, because I thought about this the other day, I'm like, as good as Pete Golding is, as good as Charlie Weiss Jr. is, I mean, is there a world where you promote one of those guys, or could you keep those guys and bring in a figurehead? Like, where would Ole Miss go?
Ole Miss right now is kind of putting out information that they're prepared to offer $13.5 million at least to Lane Kiffin for that to be public. They're going to do a national search. And then whenever you're able to offer that amount of money, you can hire just about anybody you want to do. The world's kind of your oyster at that point, especially with how aligned Ole Miss is at the moment. So if Lane decided to take another job, Ole Miss would probably replace him at a fairly high level, if we're going to be honest. I do not want at that point to hire a Pete Golding or just promote from within. I think at that point you Kalen DeBoer it and you blow it all up and you kind of start over with all of these resources and do it. Don't try and recreate what you already had.
But give me a name or two you think would be realistic for Ole Miss to land if Kiffin left.
I'm not 100% sure. I think they would go after John Sumrall if he was available. That's a name they would look at. I think personally, my three names that I would like, I think the home run hire would be James Franklin. I like James Franklin. Second of all would be John Sumrall. We just talked about that. And third, the emergency break glass candidate would be Jimmy Rogers at Washington State.
Yeah, it's just fascinating because I think every school has been linked to John Sumrall. Like, you're the Tulane coach. You were just at Troy 2 years ago, and now literally every big SEC job has interest in you. So I think that's kind of fascinating. But also, we always do this too, guys. We get lost in the heat of the moment. Like, who's the hot name right now? And you just like, that's what I always kind of want to look at. Like, what's track record? You know, that's where I thought Brian Kelly was a safe hire for LSU, because track record, he had won everywhere he'd been. Like, he's a future Hall of Famer. Just didn't work at the level of an LSU. And so I just, like, we're talking about some of these hot names. What if John Sumrall goes 5-7 at Tulane next year? Is he still the hot name? You know, so sure. It's just it's always a crapshoot. But you know, I thought Hugh Freeze was a hit, you know, hire when Auburn made it, and it turned out to be a dud. So, you know, you almost wonder if going the route of young, cheap up and comer Alex Golesh might be the best hire you can get at some of these SEC schools right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be a wild coaching carousel season, but I do say, and I talk to Ole Miss fans all the time, don't start looking at the coaching carousel hypotheticals that might happen in December or January and miss out on a November that might be the November you've been waiting for your entire Ole Miss life. So that's my thought right now.
One thing I'll say about James Franklin, I think if I were him, and the rumors are going around, we mentioned maybe he's leaning toward Virginia Tech. Let's say that's true. I think if I were going to go ACC, I'd be waiting to see if that Florida State job comes open. I mean, that's the job to me. And because not only does Florida State have the history, but the soft landing of the ACC, hey, it'd be great to maybe, I think James Franklin would do well at Arkansas, for example, or you brought up Ole Miss, hypothetically, if that job were to come open. I think he would do great in a whole bunch of places in the SEC. But, hey, let's face it, ACC, a little bit tougher to make the playoff, especially if you're Florida State.
Yeah, and
a little easier, I should say, a little easier.
James Franklin in North Carolina would be scary, honestly. I will say that.
That could work, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I think they're stuck with Belichick another year. I think they're going to give him another year. But it is interesting. I mean, Virginia Tech, if he turns them around, to me, it's a much easier path to win in the ACC than coming to an Arkansas or even an Auburn. You know, if you're James Franklin, it's just the SEC is. I think you're going to get some of that from some of these coaches too, guys. Like, the SEC is brutal right now. You're not going to win year one coming in too if you're a new coach and you got to kind of rebuild this thing. So it's I don't know. I think that'll scare some people away. Lincoln Riley apparently had a verbal agreement with LSU a few years ago. And then he went, oh, wait, no, I'm going to USC. Because USC, the reports are, oh, they're going to go to the Big Ten. And he's like, oh, easier path there than in the SEC. So I think some people aren't ready for the big prime time of the SEC, and it's big boy football here, and it's hard to win. So we'll see what happens. I do know this, guys, once all the coaching dominoes fall, man, we're going to have an awesome, fun time in December and January talking transfer portal and where all these guys are going. I mean, there's a world, I was talking to somebody the other day, there's a world where Lane Kiffin stays at Ole Miss, loads up, goes and gets DJ Lagway from Florida, Cam Coleman from Auburn. Like, why not just poach all these other SEC schools for talent if you're Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss? So it's just going to be fascinating. Final thoughts from either of you?
Like I said, this is for Ole Miss fans. This is an unbelievably exciting November. It's the November to remember, the November you've kind of been waiting on your entire life. And I'm excited. You got the Citadel Saturday, then the Florida Gators coming to town, and that week is going to be absolutely nuts.
Just one random thought for me. Gunnar Stockton decides to not score a touchdown there, takes the knee, doesn't cover the spread. I think we're going a little overboard when people are just going, my God, it's such a smart move. What a genius, all this stuff. I'm like, yes, he realizes they don't have timeouts and it's under the 2-minute warning. Let's reward him a degree from Mensa. I don't know. A little over the top on that stuff. That's my note there.
Against Auburn, he scored. So he heard over and over
heard
again
it.
in that
Okay,
scenario.
he learned,
Yeah.
But no, just the commentary of, God, it's such a smart move. I've had about enough of that, along with the college kicker situation. I've had enough of that, too.
Yeah. I also like style points. If you can beat your opponent by more than what you currently have, go do it. That's just my take, but I get it. It's
I get it. You would have won either way, by the way.
Yeah,
so,
they weren't going to score twice.
Right, exactly.
So what are we doing here? All right, gents. For Stephen Miller, for John Miller, I'm Chris Gordy. This has been our Sunday reaction show. We'll talk to you guys throughout this week on Locked On Ole Miss, Locked On Mizzou. I've got you with Locked On SEC and all of our shows on the Locked On Podcast Network covering your team every day.
Did you say Stephen Miller?
Yes,
Some people call
John
me
Miller.
Maurice. Wow.
Steve Miller, man.